Hello lovelies, nice to see you again. Thanks for joining me. This week I'm going to show you how I prep an art journal. Now, I don't buy a brand new art journal from the stationery store. I find them too white, too clinical, too, I don't know, something. But they're very uninspiring for me. So what I do is I find an old book or an antique book, and before you tell me off for pulling apart an antique book, it's okay, they were going to landfill anyway. When you see where I find them, you'll know what I'm talking about. So come with me and I'll show you how I do it from start to finish. Okay? See you in the video. Now you're probably like me. Every second-hand shop, charity shop, thrift store that you go into, there's just rows and rows of second-hand books. The soft covers are really not any good to me. I'm after more this sort of thing. You know, it looks like it has a linen cover. It's probably a book binding material of some kind. They've got individual signatures like this. I just love them, and I can convert them into an art journal. So this little store was outside a grocery shop in a shopping mall, and they sell these books for like $1 each, raising money for charity. So I don't mind that at all. $1, I think, is a bargain for an art journal. So let's take this one and let's go and see what I do to prep it as an art journal. So here is the one that I chose. Now you'll notice I've gone right to the middle of the signature, and I hope you can see there. See, it's stitched in. So what you'll need is our little sewing little companion that we've all had when we learnt to sew in school, and that's called the quick unpick, or at least that's what we called it in Australia. What we want to do is we want to go in under the stitching, and that will help us to start undoing the signature. These beautiful hand-sewn books. Very rare that you get them like this today. Now the first signature is always hard to get out. I'll give you the tip, because the book is tight, all right? But once you've undone the stitching, you can see the pages start to come out really, really easily, till you get down to the last little page that is stuck to the previous chapter, and then you kind of have to stop and leave it like that, all right? And then we go to the middle of the next chapter and we unpick this. So this one will start to get easier than the previous one. Sometimes stitching is even slack already, so you know, it makes it easier to work with. And you repeat the process. You start taking out the pages. Easy, easy. We don't want to pull the whole book apart. You want it to have some integrity when you're finished. But what we're doing, we're taking the book from having a perfect fit to its spine so that it closes like that, to having the spine and having some room here so that when we do our art, we've got room. All right? So I'm going to keep on taking out pages from the journal until I can't take any more. And then I'm going to find the middle of the next signature, and I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to speed this part up for you so that you're not here for hours watching me undo stitching on books. So I have taken that bulk out of that book. All right, that gives you some idea of the bulk that I've taken out. And now what's left is like this. It's gone from a 437 page plus book down to 42 pages. And you see how the spine is quite wide, and this now is down. It's normally the other way around, isn't it? So once I start filling it, my art journal will come out and be able to accommodate all that art in this beautiful space that I've left here. All right, so that's step one, and it's quite a big step. Takes a little bit of time and a little bit of dedication, but now I'm going to show you step two of prepping your old book art journal. All right, let's get started with that. So for that part, we're going to need some gesso and some stencils, some ink and some paint, and maybe some old magazine pages. Anyway, I'm just going to show you what I do without overthinking the process. All right, so I've got my gesso, got my journal ready to go. So I don't really want to touch, like I said, the first page because they seem to be okay, you know, and things like this will get covered over just with whatever on the second go round. So let me just go through. I might put something through that. So get some gesso onto my brush and just start covering it over. Now, I don't want it too thick. I just want a light covering, just so that it takes away what was originally on the page and pushes it into the background. All right, now between these pages I need to put some greaseproof paper so that I can keep working without it sticking to the other page. So what you do is you do your gesso and then put a piece of greaseproof paper down, and you can carry on and do what you want. So I'll probably leave that because it would get covered. This one I would do some gessoing on, and so on. So gessoing is like the first stage of getting something on the pages, just something to push back the original writing and give you some, you know, space to think, well, you know, I quite like that writing in the background, or I don't like it at all. And then you can add other things to it, like, you know, bits of magazines or whatever, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So you just keep repeating this process all the way through until you get the pages that you want covered. And then from there, you can start adding other things. So, you know, with this one, I might do some gessoing here, and then I might choose to leave this one and maybe add some collage or something there in a little while. So we have to wait for the gesso to dry, which doesn't take that long, to be honest. So what we want to do is just, you know, get our pages all prepared, because, you know, with an art journal, if you're going to be using paint, crayons or anything like that, whatever you're going to do, whatever mixed medium you've chosen to do on the substrate, you need something in the background to hold that. Alright, so sometimes I'll do different shapes on the pages. As I start to feel what the journal is about, I start to think, okay, I need to start changing tack a bit so that it all doesn't look the same. And so I will add maybe circles, maybe squares, maybe double circles, stuff down the middle, you know, other little marks and lines, but they'll come in a minute anyway when I start adding the other things. So I'm going to continue with this until it's done and wait for it to dry. Alrighty, look, it's all dried, the pages that I did. So let's have a look now at what we've got. Right, so we start peeling off the greaseproof paper, and we end up with pages that are no longer just writing from the story, but they've now started to have a little bit of interest added to them. All right, so take all of this off. Now I just want to show you just here, can you see how the book is starting to split a bit? There and there. It's because of the moisture, I guess, that I've added to the pages. And I'm going to show you in a minute what I do with those as well. Like here, all right, so I will get a little piece of fabric. I often use plain colours like this, you know, white, whatever it is, because I feel like then I can ink it or whatever and make it part of the page that I'm actually doing. So what I do is just get a piece that will fit like that. Get some matte medium. Get a brush and just reinforce the page so that the book or your journal, your art journal, just becomes that little bit stronger. And once you start doing this with a few pages, you'll notice that the sturdiness of the journal starts to come back like it was when it was the original book before. So don't be afraid of this process and don't panic if you think, oh my goodness, the whole thing's falling apart. It's not. You just have to play with it a bit, reinforce it, treat it with a little bit of love. Now, what will happen with this, it will become very reinforced. So the next time that I open this journal, I won't have to worry about these pages separating and coming apart and the whole thing collapsing because I've reinforced it. So I'm just going to leave that to dry. And what I'll do is so that it dries in the crease properly here and is able to still fold, because you know if you leave it open at this stage flat like that, it won't then fold properly. So just make sure there's plenty of matte medium on there like that, and then I'll just leave it to dry like that. All right, so I'm going to let it dry and then I'll come back and show you the next stage of how I do the pages. So once the first one was dry, I decided just to go through and reinforce the other pages that needed doing so that when I come back I can just show you them all done and the integrity of the book is back intact. Also, what I love here is you can already start to see, you know, the bits of cloth hanging out, the shape of the pages, and everything is just starting to look more like an art journal. I love this process. Alright, so at this stage I'm going to cover her ears because she's not very happy. Alright, so what happened is I chose her off of a shelf. She's almost 70 years old. She's always had all her pages, and when I picked her up she thought she was coming home to be in my bookcase, but she's not. And so I brought her home. I've unceremoniously ripped out most of her pages. Then I've added gesso. Then I've reinforced some pages. And she's a little bit shocked. But what she doesn't know is she's going to be beautiful. And I'm going to cherish her. So until that time, we have to be a little bit gentle. So let's get on and do the next part now. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So I like to ink. Now I like to just use my favorite stencils. I really like mandala ones like this or like this. I love this one. I use it a lot. And this. Now these just give really interesting backgrounds to your pages. They may or may not show up in my final art, but it just gives me something on the page that, you know, I'm not opening the book to a blank page. Now, because it's autumn here, I've kind of decided on greens, a sort of a pumpkin colour, a brown colour ink. So let's just get started and I'll show you how I kind of work through the book. All right, so you can see, one thing I just wanted to show you is, now you can see that I have reinforced the pages like I showed you previously, but see how flat it sits. It's just gorgeous, you know, so for doing art, it just sits lovely and flat. And sometimes when you buy, you know, an art journal, they don't even sit flat. You've got to kind of hold them down, and this just sits lovely and flat. Doesn't matter which page I open up. So that's another plus as well. All right, let's get started. So just say I'm in here. So what I would want to do is maybe just take off a little bit of this darkness. And I go over wherever I've done the reinforcing as well. You know, I just do whatever sort of takes my fancy. So let's start with a little bit of a pumpkin colour. And I've just got these little brushes I got off of Alibaba. They're really cheap. And what I want to do is just a little something on the page. Not a lot, see? And when I open it up, that will be sitting there. So you can pick different colours. You can have the same kind of colour scheme. You can just flip to different pages. Don't do them in order so that you end up with a, you know, the same colour page after page. What you want to do is just sort of open up and keep moving so that different pages have different interest on them. Might do it on both pages here. And you kind of get the idea. So when I open up this page, it's no longer blank. It has something on it that is going to maybe inspire me, or I think, oh, I love that colour, or, you know, something like that, all right? So let's go back to the start. I'm going to get some collage papers ready, and we're going to do a little bit of that. That's our next step. All right, this is a really fun part. So I've got a little box full of scraps, which I'm sure we all have, and I stick in there little, you know, pictures or bits of paper that I find interesting, and then I use them in my art journal. So let's get started. I really love this grandfather clock. I think it sort of represents the passage of time, and sometimes when we're doing our art journals, when we look back through, we can see the passage of time. We can see how our art improves, or how we change, or how our style changes maybe. So yeah, I'm thinking that this right in the front will be sort of a good reminder of that. So I like to just stick images randomly through the art journal, and I just use a glue stick because I find that works just as well as anything else. And if I particularly want something, you know, to be protected or whatever, then I'll use matte medium over the top of it, which I'll probably do to this image later on. But for now, I'm just going to show you what I do so you get an idea of what I mean about adding images and how they can come to have meaning. Now, with this one, what I will probably do is do some more art around it, but leave the big image in the middle. And then every time I open the journal, this is there to remind me, and I'll probably add some wording or whatever. But anyway, just for now, let's move through and I'll show you sort of what I do. I just have like really nice little images like this that I may love at the time, and because it's got sort of an autumn theme going on, I will just add them, and I won't think too much about it. And you know, later on they may not even make the final journal page, but what they are is inspiration for me, so that when I open up the journal, I'm not just faced with blank pages. So I might not do it on every page. I may just pick something as simple as a stamp, you know, to cover over maybe some writing. And this is interesting in itself because it's got sort of for safe delivery, and it's got a little signature there from something else, and that will inspire me maybe to get going. And it just removes the writing that was under it in the first place. So yeah, this is me now starting to get a little bit of an idea about what my journal is going to be about with the colours and the different images. And I might not choose every page, But say something like this, which has still got a big expanse of nothing, I may just even pick part of an envelope like this with a little bit of interesting writing where it's been stamped and delivered. And I just add that to my journal. And what it starts to do is take away the plainness of the pages. And bits start to overhang. You know, it just starts to become interesting rather than just plain old pages. I just love how it's going to turn out. And you can just make them really simply from an old book. And they just turn out so beautiful. And you can just keep adding things to them. And they have soul, they have character, you know. It's just not like having a plain journal that you take home from the shop and they're just really plain and uninteresting. You know, we've added gesso to this already. We've added stabilizers with the fabric so that the pages don't continue to fall out. We've added bits of you know, old pattern and different, you know, we've stenciled and bits of paper. And now this art journal is ready for me to just open up at any page and carry on and do something really lovely for the day. It gives me, when I open up a page, it just gives me inspiration. It's not a plain page that I'm opening up. And I really encourage you, if you don't already do it, to grab an old book and convert it into an art journal like I've done here, because it's really something different. It becomes unique to you. You know, no two are the same, not like buying a generic art journal from the stationery store where they're all the same and you just don't know, you know, you can't get any kind of inspiration when you open them up. They're just plain and white and boring. And this started off as an old book and now it's all ready for me to open up when I feel the inspiration. And I'll paint over these pages with, you know, the text still on them. I'll, you know, do lots of different things. I'll show you as I go along. And these things have just been placed in here. I don't know if I want to stick that in there yet, so I've just placed it in there. I'm kind of liking how this page looks, and I shall do journaling around it and all sorts of things. There's a little card. I don't know if I want it there, but I really like it. It's just an old playing card. And so it goes on. So I add these little pieces just to stop me having a blank page when I open up the journal, and it just gives me inspiration. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that I've given you something to think about, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Bye-bye.